We're going to start our lunch program now. If everyone can have a seat. If you can't find one, please look for some of our very helpful staff here to help you find one. Welcome. I'm Kathleen Stevens, and it's a real delight to welcome all of you to today's lunch to mark Korean American Day. Now, some of you know that Korean American Day actually falls on January 13th, which is Sunday this year. So we're just getting an early start on the weekend. And our theme this year, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, is something, and we actually debated a bit in the office about what to call it. I actually call it Korea is Cool, and we'll talk more about that. But I also know that today, maybe what we'd say about Washington is 너무 추워, really cold. One of the things I never forgot how to say in Korean, and I thought about it as I walked out today. So I wanted to say a special thanks to everyone for coming out today on this cold day. But there is so much warmth in this room, which I've seen already from our many, many friends who are here. We're going to be joined shortly by the new Congressman from New Jersey, Congressman Andy Kim, who is already on the Hill voting, I understand. They're operating. We had until, I think he just had to leave a moment ago, but many of you had a chance to say hello to our Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and European Affairs and the former Chargé d'Affaires in Seoul, Mark Napper. He's working notwithstanding the government shutdown, but as he explained to me, he's allowed to come and talk to people he's not allowed to eat. So he had to leave, but sent his greetings. And we're also very honored to have from the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in the United States, Minister for Public Diplomacy, Chun Jun-ho, who supports, I think, so many of us throughout the year in our efforts to deepen the U.S.-Korea relationship. I'm going to say a couple of words. Maybe it's kind of like filibustering, waiting for the congressman to come, but you're allowed to eat your salad. I'm not going to extend my remarks, but I wanted to say a word about Korean American Day. Why it's January 13th. January 13th does mark the day in 1903 when 102 Koreans arrived in Hawaii, the first Korean immigrants to the United States. Although actually Hawaii wasn't a state then, but never mind. I won't get distracted. And actually there's a very interesting museum. There's a museum for everything in Korea, some of you know. There's a museum near Incheon Airport called the Korean Immigration Museum, which actually has some very interesting historical data about that first intrepid group arriving on our shores in 1903. And it was 100 years later, and I think some of you may have been involved in this, but in 2003, a number of Korean American groups designated January 13th to be Korean American Day every year to memorialize that journey of 1903. And then a couple of years later, our Congress takes a little time. 2005, they passed a joint resolution that, and the text I think is in your program, that encourages all of us to share in quote, commemorating the date in order to more greatly appreciate, I'm changing their grammar here, the valuable contributions Korean Americans have made to the United States, and to observe Korean American Day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. So that's what we're doing. And KEI, the institution with which I'm affiliated, started doing this back in 2008. We really took this joint resolution to heart, and we did begin hosting these annual events, and there are many more around the country, which is wonderful, where we do seek to highlight just some of the extraordinary achievements and contributions of Korean Americans throughout the United States and across the whole range of activities and professions. So you'll see again in your program some of the recent recipients over the years. And I think one thing that really comes out is the diversity of their pursuits in the fields in which Korean Americans are making so many contributions. And so I think not only about the accomplishments of the individual honorees themselves, but how representative they were and are of the incredible depth of Korean Americans' engagement in this country in so many fields, whether it's journalism, science and technology, the culinary arts, humanitarian work, on and on and on. So as I said, this year, what are we honoring? Your invitation said leaders of Hallyu in the United States. And I thought, we're just assuming everybody knows what Hallyu is, right? That itself says something, I think. And then we talked about, are we talking about pop culture or soft power or digital enterprise? Well, kind of all of the above. So I called it Korea is cool and modern. But I guess the other thing we've discovered is we just call it K, right? K-pop, K-beauty, K-drama. It goes on and on. K has become synonymous with cool. And you're going to hear more about that in great detail from our wonderful honorees I had the chance to have dinner with last night, who have played and are playing leading roles in introducing and making available to a burgeoning and enthusiastic American, and I could say world audience, global audience, some of the products that make Korea cool. And in doing that, they're also, I think, really exploring what the new wave, if you like, of economic development growth is going to be, not only for the Republic of Korea, but for the next generation. Jobs and products based upon digital technology and the changed world in which we live. So, welcome to Washington. Congratulations to all of you. We look forward to hearing from you today and going forward. I'm not going to make this speech longer, I promise. My last thing I was going to do is introduce Congressman Kim, and I'll wait till he gets here to do that. But I was thinking today as I came about the fact, and last night as I met our honorees, that I first went to and lived in Korea. I'm obviously not Korean American, but I first went to and lived there in 1975. And I began to think, that may have been before any of our current honorees were born. And I guess it means I feel like I have a lot to say about what I've witnessed of Korea's modern journey, of the growth not only of the Korean American community over the years, but of the kind of innovation that the people we're honoring today represent. But it's not the time to say all that. But what I do want to say to our honorees, and I know I speak for everyone here, is we're very, very proud of you. And we congratulate you for what you're doing and what you're going to do, not only for the United States or for U.S.-Korea ties, but for your generation and for the world. 가슴이 벅찹니다, 보니까. So, enjoy your lunch. When Congressman Kim arrives, I will probably interrupt your lunch again. I hope you'll understand that. I know he's very eager to join us. And we'll continue with our program. Once we've heard from him and completed our lunch, then we really have the heart of our program. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Again, welcome and enjoy. 감사합니다. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got so much we want to pack into today. We're going to interrupt you again, but please continue eating. It's very delicious and it's great fusion food, I have to say. I didn't know Museum did that. So. But Congressman Kim has arrived, and so we're so pleased. Have you been voting? Yes. But we're so pleased he's here, and we hope you'll be able to get a bite to eat after we invite you to say a few words and to meet our honorees. We've just watched some videos about their work and their passion and their vision. But my only job right now is to welcome Congressman Andy Kim to our Korean American Day celebration. I think, as you all know, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives just last November. In fact, I guess it's probably less than 2 weeks since you've been sworn in. About 8 days. So we're really, really appreciative that you've made time to come. Congressman Kim represents the 3rd Congressional District of New Jersey, which stretches from the Delaware River to the Atlantic Ocean. He grew up in South Jersey, the child of Korean immigrants. I understand your father was a scientist and your mother a nurse, so we know where you got the muscle for public service. Congressman Kim was educated in the excellent public schools of his South Jersey hometown, attended Deep Springs College, which is very cool, cool is the word of the day, and graduated from the University of Chicago. He was a Truman and Rhodes Scholar. His public service career, which is, if I may say, I think is only still just beginning, but already includes assignments at the Pentagon, the State Department, and the National Security Council, working on some of our most challenging national security and foreign policy issues, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Middle East. He and his wife have 2 beautiful young boys. It's all on YouTube, Congressman, as you know. And we are so pleased to see you here in person today and that you can join us. Your family, your life, your service to date, the new challenges now before you, epitomize what Korean American Day is all about. So we are honored and delighted you can join us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. It's a real honor to be before you, and I look forward to getting to know a lot of you and working alongside a lot of you. As just mentioned, I'm 8 days in, and I've done my best not to step on too many landmines this first week. We're doing everything we can to get this government up and running. I just voted to make sure that the federal employees who are not getting paid right now are going to make sure that they receive their full pay afterwards. So I want to make sure that we're moving forward. And as someone who was a career public servant before, working under both Republicans and Democrats, we absolutely need to make sure that we're moving forward, respecting what public service is about. That's what this town was built for and what it is that we're sent here by the American people to do. For me, this is a really, truly wonderful day to celebrate in terms of Korean American Day. I'm glad that it happened, just shortly after me getting sworn in here, for me to be able to reflect on this. For me, some of you have heard me talk about my family story before, but for me, as coming into this as a son of immigrants, thinking about everything that my parents have been through, and just 8 days ago, to get sworn in on the floor of the House of Representatives with my right hand up and looking up and seeing my mother up in the gallery looking down upon me, it was a truly powerful experience and one of the most powerful moments of my life. And when I thought about that, I thought about everything that my father and my mother went through to be able to get us to this moment, get us to this experience and this opportunity. My father grew up in an orphanage. He's a survivor of polio. That orphanage treated him so poorly that he ran away and was homeless for much of his childhood. My mom grew up in a poor farm family to a single mom, lost brothers and sisters to hunger, famine, and disease. I've told that story over and over again because it humbles me. It reminds me of where my American story begins. And I recognize that this country that took a chance on my family, brought my father and my mother in, gave them an education. And my dad, who grew up in an orphanage, survivor of polio, then became a PhD in genetics here in America. And my mother had the opportunity to become a nurse and served in the great hospitals of this country her whole career. That's what America gave us. And through that whole time, the Korean American community here, however fledgling and small was at that time, and growing, that community and that camaraderie is what gave my family a home that they otherwise didn't have in this country. And that coalescence and that coming together was something I saw over and over again, whether that was trying to help my parents find jobs or helping babysit me and my sister while they had to work. The community came together, and that was the essence of what I understood and what I came through, whether it was through the Korean American community or the church or other ways in which we gather together, is that I was taught this very maxim that service isn't just a job, it's a way of life. That our service to each other, very much like the service that we're supposed to be engaged in up on the Capitol Hill and throughout this city, it's fundamental. It's not just a 9-to-5 job. It's about our fundamental relationships to the people around us. And that's what it taught me. That's what the Korean American community taught me and the lessons that it bestowed upon me. And that's what encouraged me to dedicate my life to service. So what I say is that while I was born here in America and grew up in this country, being of Korean heritage, having my parents as immigrants from Korea, that has made me a stronger American. Being Korean American has made me a stronger American. Understanding my roots, understanding and being prideful of my ability to be able to serve as a Korean American in Congress. I am humbled by that opportunity. And we see the same with the relationships between America and Korea. We see that same inextricable link in history and culture in all of us. And that linkage between Korea and America is as inextricable and as connected as they both are within me. And that is something that I want to draw upon. I want to understand and see just the fullness of that relationship and that partnership in all its complexities and in all its challenges. And I know so many people here in this room understand that and work on those relationships, work in different aspects. And I come before you with humility today saying, I know there's a lot that I need to learn still. A lot that I need to understand. And just because I'm Korean American in Congress doesn't mean I know everything that needs to happen to support the Korean American community here in this country and help support our relationship with the Korean government and the Korean people. So I come here as a gesture of openness that I look forward to talking to all of you, as many of you as I can. I'm looking forward to sticking around. Please reach on out to me. Please reach on out to my team. That's how we're going to be able to work together to be able to get this done. And in the same way that I come before you with that humility, I just want to say that it is truly an honor. I'm blessed to be able to speak to you on Korean American Day observance, and it's such a blessed opportunity. I hope to make you proud on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for coming and joining us in celebrating the Korean American Day. My name is Sang Kim. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at KEI, and I always enjoy organizing Korean American Day every year. And today, we're talking about something very non-DC. We're going to hold pause on the North Korea and politics for a little bit and to talk about something very exciting and fun. So I'm very honored to have honorees for this year with us on stage. And I also like to thank Museum for not closing during the shutdown. I'm so glad that they can accommodate us. So let's get started. We have lots to talk about. So you've seen some of their videos, and you will see the full bio on your booklet, so you get to learn more about their work and what they do. So let's reflect on 2018 for a little bit, right? So Korean Peninsula entirely was on the news a lot for various reasons. So one, there was a historic summit between North and South Korea, and also the US and North Korea summit. But on the other side of that, South Korean pop culture has also been on the news a lot, but I feel like we don't talk about it enough in DC. So I'm very excited to have our honorees to discuss various topics, such as K-pop, K-beauty, K-drama, movies, and such. So you've been on this field for a really long time, watching from the beginning to now. So a lot of people have questions. Why is K-pop and K-pop Hallyu so big now versus how it was before? Because for the longest time, the Korean entertainment company has been trying so hard to break into the US market, but they weren't able to do so. But with last year, BTS. So what was it so special about that? So Susan, I want to start with you. And first, happy birthday. Today's Susan's birthday.
Thank you.
So this is part of Susan's birthday party.
Oh, thank you all for coming to my birthday.
So yeah, Susan, so you've been following K-pop since '98. So what was different about this time, and what changed?
I think a lot of things, really, K-pop has evolved over the years, but a lot of it is actually the same. Just the emphasis on the entire aesthetic and the visual and the performance and that passion that it brings. I think one of the really big changes that enabled K-pop to really break out of just this niche is really the internet, right? YouTube, social media. Just the accessibility of it is so different than, say, when I started Soompi in 1998. Like, I would have to go to a Korean video store and rent VHS tapes and then rip that and upload that onto the internet. And so it was very hard. Like, people who, even if they're interested, it was very hard for them to access information. Versus now, especially, I think YouTube really is the big thing. And I think the K-pop industry did a really good job of jumping onto that very early on and really capitalizing the reach that they could have there. And so, yeah, internet and social media also, I think there's been a big change in the way that Korean artists are able to interact with their fans. Previously, even a few years ago, every word, every action was very heavily monitored and controlled by the agencies, versus now, I think artists have a lot more freedom to really interact with their fans, and I think that really makes a difference to the fan experience.
Right, and I also want to talk about K-beauty. So David and Charlotte, we see a lot more K-beauty products in CVS, Sephora and Target. So what led to this visibly widespread of Korean product in the United States?
Well, first of all, I remember in 2012 when we started Soko Glam, we moved to New York, and I have a PR background. And what I did is I started emailing beauty editors and asking them, do you guys know what K-beauty is? And they're like, yeah, K-beauty, Kardashian beauty, right? And I was like, actually, it's the exact opposite of that, but so let's start from that. And we, Dave and I were really passionate about sharing what we had learned while living in Korea. Dave was stationed out in Korea as an army captain, and he was also a commander. And I was in Samsung, and we learned so much about Korea. We were so blown away by the beauty culture and how advanced it was, how savvy the Korean consumers were, and I wanted to share that with the U.S. because I knew my friends were interested in the topic, but they had no information, and there wasn't Instagram at that time. Smartphones were not a big thing at the time, so we took it upon ourselves to bring that knowledge specifically to the U.S. where we both grew up. And I think what was really exciting about the whole experience is that even though no one in the US really knew about K-beauty, it was a very niche, small topic, beauty editors were very open to embracing the topic. They were very excited about the price point. It was so accessible. When you thought of K-beauty, you would think about how your skincare routine could actually be fun. The American mindset was a little bit more about how, you think about skincare products when you're starting to see wrinkles or when you're scared about, getting older or something. It was a very negative connotation, but I think Korean beauty really helped make skincare a fun, enjoyable process. And that's really the foundation of Soko Glam, and what we really strive to do is help people take care of their skin, learn about the skincare routines that are from Korea, get excited about the new ingredients and innovations that are coming from Korea. So that's just a little bit about what we've been doing, and we think that the American consumer opened their arms and embraced it, and we're so thankful for that.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is, so what Susan also said is, I think, for example, Korean beauty products, they have been in the United States for decades, actually. You could have gone to the Korean communities, the K-towns of the cities. You can always find that shop that has, Korean products, Taiwanese products, Japanese products. They were always here, but the question is, then why did it kind of explode in 2012? And it was touched upon, but I also want to touch it again. It really is, we all know that social media has really helped all of these, fill in the blank categories grow, but it's also because today what social media has done is it first gave people a platform, but then now where it might have been the quiet majority of people just observing, watching, consuming, but now they're actually engaging. And so I think that when it comes to K-pop, comes to K-beauty, comes to K-anything, they're now sharing, where back in the day, I still remember HOT when they came, and there was some closet HOT fans. You had the passionate ones, but then you had some folks who, were kind of embarrassed almost, especially if you were Korean American, but now you're proud and you're sharing it. And I gotta say, we've been to some of these K-pop concerts, and the majority of the people in the audience are not Korean. And it's amazing. There's tens of thousands of people in the audience, and so people are sharing. And it's different. It's not just social media, it's the behaviors that we're seeing that's helping all categories grow.
Right, just to follow up on that, so when we talk about Hallyu and K-beauty, people understand the music and kind of the film is part of it. But when it comes to beauty, people are not sure why that's part of the culture. So I'm sure you get that question a lot. So can you just tell us a little bit about how, because Korean beauty trend and the skincare is very different compared to the others and very unique to Korea. So could you explain to us why that is part of culture for South Korea?
Well, first, I think what really fascinated all the beauty editors was the fact that everyone in Korea had a skin-first philosophy. Growing up in the US, I did not care about skincare at all. I was at the beach, I didn't wear any sunscreen, and I also just cared about lip gloss and jeans that made my butt look good. Skincare was not part of my vocabulary. But in Korea, everyone knows that skincare is part of their health, wellness. They really thought about skincare first before makeup. And so I think that's like the big shift. That was a big like awakening for people in the U.S. They said, "Wow, why do Korean women have such amazing skin? And they look, they may be 60, but they look 30." And so all of those questions came, boiled up, and then we were able to have an answer to that. And the answer is that they actually really have a very savvy mindset about skincare. They know how to look into ingredients. They know what to look for when they're shopping. And Americans were like, "I want to learn too. Teach me." And they really looked up to Korean women and their routines. And so that's kind of what really captivated the U.S. audience.
At the global beauty players like the Estee Lauder, L'Oreal's of the world, can't remember exactly right now, but one of the CEOs were interviewed about, so what are you going to do about this K-beauty wave and thing? This is early on when we didn't know if it was going to be a fad or not. And what he replied with was basically, the way we're going to address it is we're going to embrace it. And so what that means for them is that they kind of adopted some of these innovations. They actually make their products in Korea now, a lot of them. And so it's really great because, Charlotte was the one, some people in the audience may have heard of the 10-step Korean skincare routine. So Charlotte actually coined that term a long time ago, right? And that kind of caught on. All the beauty editors loved it, and everybody's clicking on it. And it wasn't about 10 steps, but it was really a tool that was used to educate the consumer on how to take care of your skin. So there's 10 things when before maybe all you were using was Cetaphil from CVS, or going to the department stores and buying whatever they told you to buy, but you didn't really understand your skin. So what we're seeing today is it's really great that the consumer is a lot more savvy. And so I think that, that's what K-beauty has really done. It's been about education, and it's not just K-beauty, it's actually helping consumers. So it's crazy. We get actually asked all the time from these big companies to consult for them or something, because they're trying to find out how they can adopt this. And it's really kind of great that, everyone's embracing what Korea is producing.
Great. And Michael, and I want to talk about K-drama and K-film for a little bit. You've been in the industry for a long time. You had the cable.
I'm old, yeah.
You're still young at heart, right? You had the cable channel that aired a lot of Asian content, and now you switch over to the digital content. So we're also seeing a lot of Korean dramas, Korean movies, on Netflix and other venues. So what do you think was the catalyst behind the popularity behind Korean dramas and movies?
It was all me. First of all, I want to thank KEI. It's been a really enjoyable experience just getting in touch with my, Korean American identity. I really enjoyed the conversation yesterday. But most of all, I appreciate your voice. Okay? I'm so happy I got to meet you. We're going to build a whole show around you. And we're going to create memes and... the question? Well, there's a lot of different things. There's different points, I think, in the evolution of Hallyu. And you're right, I was kind of in it in the very early stages, involving artists like Rain when he first came to Madison Square Garden, and him being featured in the New York Times, and then included in Time 100 most, influential people. And at that time, I still remember KBS going to that concert and looking for any white or non-Asian face to interview, because the narrative was Hallyu is real, and it's really a big deal culturally outside of Korea. It wasn't. It really wasn't. They had to really, I think I hired one of the people that were in the line, and she's working for me, Mary Gibson, but it was not a real thing. I think there's some big inflection points. Like I said in the video, I think Drama Fever, Vicky, K-dramas, I think, was probably the thing that really broke out first. And a lot of it also had to do with a mainstream platform like Hulu really embracing it and putting it out there. At one point, it was like the 5th largest, most popular category within Hulu, okay? But it also tells you how tenuous this can be because it's not so anymore, okay? And they no longer really feature it, but now you have Netflix that's kind of taken over the mantle. So K-drama is another big issue, I think. In terms of K-pop, which I think in some ways has the biggest potential. And I would say K-beauty is just wrapped up into all of this. Because when you see like a really amazing looking actor or actress, it always kind of, what is it about Korean content that people embrace and what are they drawn to? A lot of it first started in Asia. It was very aspirational, like, wow, the Koreans really know what they're doing in terms of the fashion, in terms of the K-beauty. Obviously, the whole kind of, all of the culture is very aspirational. You have like huge tourism now centered around, trying to adopt, the best aspects of Korean culture. But I would say, the media products, and one of the things that I want to kind of emphasize today is that, especially in this city, like where we talk about policy and we talk about different issues that happen maybe on a macro level, I see constantly where, if anything, like Hallyu and just entertainment products where you're reaching the masses is incredibly important, actually. And when people think about Korea, and going back to like different conflicts, let's say Muslims in this country, whenever there's a conflict overseas, everybody gets hassled here, right? And when you talk about Asians, I don't think they'll think about Koreans just as that country that had a war, And a lot of it has to do with these cultural kind of influences. A lot of white teenage girls in suburbia know what K-drama is, and K-pop certainly with BTS. I mean, it's a big, big deal. So it's such an important issue, and I was talking to the ambassador yesterday. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the ambassador. But I was mentioning to her, so I said, you gotta watch Produce 48. Because you talk about all these really kind of negative things that you see about Japanese and American kind of, relations. Here, it's an incredibly touching moment where these two, at an individual level, where you see really positive, warm kind of interactions. I think, anybody that watches that, their take on the whole issue is going to be a little different. And I said, how incredibly important is that? And the fact that so many people in both countries, and not at the political level or elite level, are actually consuming that, and maybe minds are being changed in the process. That's the power of Hallyu. And what's great about it is that it's not just about Korea now and in the Far East or Southeast Asia. It's coming to the West, okay? I'm gonna stop talking, but one other point, like, the reason why all of this is possible is because of digital, the mechanism. Psy doesn't, when we did Rain in New York City, there wasn't that kind of viral aspect to it, Now, something big happens, this is where it happens. And K-pop, especially, they have a kind of built-in kind of a community around how their business works. It invites a lot of people to do cover dances, reaction videos. One of my favorite YouTube channels, and you gotta check it out, Hillbillies React to K-pop. Amazingly entertaining, okay? It's just that, why do people like K-pop? Watch reaction channels. You could do focus groups entirely just watching reaction videos. Why do people like K-beauty? What is it about this? It's all there. People will tell you. Sororities react to K-pop, okay? It's all out there. Okay, I'll shut up.
You actually bring up a great point, right? So the cultural diplomacy. So how does the exposure to Korean pop culture influence their view on the country, South Korea, right? So, we talk about policy a lot in DC and North Korea, but in other parts of the United States, they might not follow the news as much. Their exposure to Korea might be very different than us. So in your personal experience, and you've been interacting with the customers or the fans and even distributors, or you're seeing it firsthand, how their view on Korea is changing. So could you share a little bit about your experience in that area?
So for me, the thing that pops into my mind is I recently met up with my college friends for lunch. We do it every year. And she had mentioned that her daughter's friends at school would tell her, "Oh, I'm so jealous that you're Korean. Like, I wish I was Korean because of BTS." And she's in 2nd grade. And so, I mean, like, just being Korean was never necessarily the cool thing to be, but because now it's like, oh, I love K-pop, I love K-drama. Like, all the moms at my kids' schools, like, they love K-drama, and they're not, none of them are Korean. And so it's just amazing to even be able to have a conversation with people about Korean pop culture or Korean culture in general. Like, people are learning Korean, people are going to Korea, people are, seeking out, Korean food recipes. Like, I mean, that didn't happen 10 years ago. Like, it really didn't. And so now it's just anywhere I go, I could say, oh, K-pop, and suddenly, like, I have all these people. Versus before, I was like, oh, have you heard of Gangnam Style? It was really hard. So.
I think what's interesting about K-pop is that once you enter, it can really be a rabbit hole because there's so much there. It's not just about the song. It's this whole culture, it's a whole community. That's what's amazing about it. So once you go down that hole, we had this girl that literally was from Missouri, and she didn't know the first thing about K-pop, let alone like Koreans. And she, on her own dime, like, she went to visit Korea because she's so fascinated by it. And it was all through that kind of, through K-pop and K-dramas.
I think that when it comes to K-beauty, I think it's now synonymous to high-quality skincare. I think when people hear about K-beauty, or they just trust it. And I think that's the most powerful impact the K-beauty wave has had in the beauty industry. I know a lot of my friends also want to go to Korea instead of just transferring over to go to like Thailand or Japan. They actually want their destination and their dream summer vacation is to go to Korea and tour there and get a shop Korean beauty. And so I'm really proud about that shift that I've personally witnessed. I think it's great that people are excited about Korean beauty trends and the ingredients and all the innovations that are coming directly from Korea. And I think it's amazing that Western brands like Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, they're all going to Korea to investigate what is Korea coming up with next. And they are largely influenced by the things that are happening in Korea. And the interesting twist to all of this is that when I go to Korea 4 or 5 times a year, I talk to a lot of the makeup artists and I talk to a lot of the regular Korean women on the street, and I say, it's so popular in the US. They look up to your routines and they're like, really? They're so shocked. And even when I was at Samsung and I was working there, I remember we would have these workshops and then they have this huge banner and say, we need to be more creative. I think like there's a stigma in Korea where they think they're not good enough as the Western countries and I'm just so happy that the tides are churning and digital is allowing people to see how great Korea is. And we find it really purposeful in our life to be able to share that with as many people as possible.
Yeah, just to also share my side of K-pop story. So part of KE's program, we do a lot of outreach outside of DC as well. So last November I went to Manchester, New Hampshire, to talk about K-pop, out of all places, right? So we were having this event in the evening. I would say the room was a little older generation, and one of the lady, who I would say probably around 70s, she told me she knew the members of BTS because her granddaughter loves BTS, and I was kind of shocked, and also it was kind of adorable that she follows K-pop because her granddaughter really loves it. So I mean that's extent to how much K-pop has really gone through and spread out entirely over the United States. So it's very interesting. But I do want to ask you, so what makes K-pop, K-beauty, K-drama so quintessential Korean? But also at the same time, why is it universal that it's appealing to other people in different countries, different cultures, not only in the United States, but also we're seeing it very popular in the Middle East, which has a very different culture than South Korea. So what makes it very uniquely Korean, but also what makes it kind of universally appealing?
I guess my question is, why wouldn't it be?
Why not, right?
Like all the elements were there. It's an incredibly good product. The production, everything, the MVs and everything, every bit as good, if not better, than what you have in the States. The only problem was people just didn't know about it, right? And so once people found the mechanism to watch it on YouTube, and then they saw all this other stuff, other people like them kind of reflecting, so that girl that shoots a video of herself and uploads it, oh my God, you're so cute. It's not about that act anymore. It's about her. It's about her ego now on, and being part of this where everybody, it's really enriching the experience and not just about the music. So K-pop and the communal aspects, some of the cultural and social differences actually enhance, I think, a Western viewpoint. The whole kind of junior, senior relationship and how really warm that kind of relationship is very different in the West. It's not like everybody out for themselves. So all of these things are just, I think it's eye-opening when a teenager sees that and go, yeah, I can really, and all the biases, are not there as it was like maybe 10, 20 years ago. So when, just with a clean eye, it's a very kind of democratic process. This stuff is really good, and I could be part of a community. Why wouldn't I do it?
I'll just chime in real quick. One of the other really important jobs that I have is I'm an Instagram husband. So I take pictures of this woman right here, and one of the
important job,
very
I think.
important job actually. I'm very trained now, but it was never the plan actually to have Charlotte be such a known person. She has tons of Instagram followers. She's a published author. That wasn't
My
the plan.
agent too.
Yeah.
She's our center.
I'm her hype man
She's our
as well. But it was just kind of happened organically, and it goes to kind of what everyone was saying is, 70% of our actual customer base are actually non-Asian. It's been like that since day one, and it's actually growing more non-Asian. And we used to have people come up to us and say, "Oh, K-beauty, okay, cool. Like, so you must be targeting like K-town, New York, and K-town, LA." And honestly, we weren't that business savvy or anything. We just kind of threw it out there. It was just a passion project, but it just came out truly non-Asian. And Charlotte's book is actually translated in many different languages. One of the countries is Poland, and it's a bestseller in Poland. They literally flew her out there twice to do book signings, and like lines wrapped around the door. And it's just like, if you step back and look at what's happening, it's K-beauty is so much more than just the K part too. It's really kind of, we're more alike than we are different. And this is, I know that is being said a lot, but like that truly is what's happening. And, it's an awareness thing. People didn't know about it, but, we feel proud to be a part of help bringing that to the forefront. And you find that people really resonated with it. And so, that's kind of how we see it. I think that's why you're seeing it to be more mainstream. And now, like Charlotte said, more synonymous with just really great skincare. And everyone has issues. Everyone in this room, you have your days where you walk out, you're about to walk out for work, and you look at the mirror one last time, and you're like, I look good. Or you're like, I look good right now, sorry. Or like sometimes you're like, oh, the next day, then you like, you binge watch House of Cards or something, and then now you got hormonal acne or bags on your eyes. So like everyone is thinking about their skin. I think even that whole concept of taking care of your skin is something that KBD was able to help bring to the forefront. And so, we're more alike.
Susan, do you want to add anything?
I think just one aspect to highlight that I think we kind of touched on a lot is the sense of community, with regards to what is Korean about it. I think just the depth of emotion that's conveyed through a lot of these dramas and this music, and then just the discipline that goes into say like K-beauty. Like I think those are very Korean things, right? And then the communities that grow around these things is also a very Korean thing, where community and family is such an integral part of what it is to be Korean. And so I think people all need that sense of community, and they might not have it. And so again, the whole digital part really brings people from all different places that just never would have connected otherwise through K-pop, through K-beauty, through drama. So I think that's one of the really unexpected but wonderful side effects of Korean Wave.
Great. And I do want to get deeper into the issue. So South Korea itself is going through a lot of reflection on its culture and society and questions like gender. How do we address gender? Is there a certain part of the South Korean culture that we need to reflect and maybe improve and change? So, based on your experience and your field, do you feel how do you feel your field fitting in that and reflecting it? And what are some areas that we can maybe change or improve?
Don't look at me. Yeah, there's always going to be kind of tensions when you have different cultures, and when you have Western audiences look at, like, let's say, certain kind of themes that you see with K-pop or K-drama. Issues like have come up in the past, like maybe issues of homophobia, because the attitude is a little different. How they treat certain storylines on dramas, or I was very proud to see, like, the first openly gay act. Name is Holland, I think, and it became fairly popular and accepted in Korea. So, that's kind of new. And whenever you see something like that, all the people who really love K-pop in the West, they just jump all over and go, "Wow, this is wonderful." You can kind of see where K-pop is evolving now. And so you have issues like that, LGBTQ issues that kind of get confronted. And then obviously the other big theme that people really have a hard time wrapping their head around is the whole kind of what they feel is kind of obsession about plastic surgery. And I go to Korea, I go to Gangnam all the time for business, and it's just this huge sign of plastic surgery in the building. This is how out in the open it is. Like, but it's a cultural difference. Some people kind of, they take what they want from it, but it is a fact, and it's something that is a reality that leads up to kind of discussions among Western fans, like, what is that? Isn't that like a bad thing? There's also issues, I'm sure, about gender kind of representation, especially with boy bands and, with BTS and with other groups that are, to Westernize, it may feel like very effeminate, kind of, the fact that, you can't go to an event without lipstick if you're in a boy band. That's something that comes up. And this is what I'm saying. Like, you watch hillbillies react to K-pop. This is where it all comes out. And then you kind of see where, and you see any, music video, there's like checklists of like 10 things that they all kind of gravitate to. Some very positive and some very negative. This is why they like K-pop. These are the issues, and it comes up over and over again. And the really popular reaction channels are the ones that get most of that every single time. Like, here, here, here. It's very satisfying to other K-pop fans. Other K-pop fans watch reaction videos of others reacting to this stuff. It's just, this bond. So it's not a secret why certain things kind of pop up. But yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. But I think it's nothing that we can't overcome. People will talk it out, and it'll get resolved.
I guess in terms of beauty, I think that obviously there's high rates of plastic surgery, and there's a lot of competitiveness in Korean society, and so that
Right.
they're very, very disciplined about the way they look. For me, when I was in Korea and I first learned about K-beauty, I didn't take it to that extreme. I think anything you do in life, if you take it to the extreme, it's not good. So the way I digested Korean beauty was not to that extreme. What I wanted to do was I learned more about skin, and then I applied it, and I saw my skin transform, and that brought a lot of confidence for me. And so that's what people in America are really interested in, and that's the kind of narrative and description that I want to share with them. It's not about achieving flawless skin, and unless you have flawless skin, then you're like a terrible person. It's telling them, this is, you can make improvements, small little improvements to your skin and to your confidence, and this is what Korean women do to get, that perfect skin, or that, near perfect skin. But some of the messaging that we always share through Soko Glam is only good skin days ahead. We want to help people believe that there are only good skin days ahead, and so that doesn't mean perfect skin days ahead or flawless or like, you're like a Barbie doll, nothing like that. It's very realistic and it's very approachable, and there's no way you could get perfect skin. So we're not about pushing the message that's to the extreme. And so that's our approach in getting pretty much a healthy dose of that skin culture.
Yeah, I'll quickly add that, that's our mission statement, to help all people believe there are only good skin days ahead. So skin is a parenthesis. So it's about kind of, what we can do is help them get a better day. I think what Charlotte was saying is we kind of take what our experience was being an American in Korea when we were both living there for 5 years, and then taking what we really love about K-beauty and the culture of beauty in Korea and translating that for the United States. So being still very authentic to it. I think that at the same time, like what you're saying is, even for me at least, there is a side of it that I think that it's, I'll be honest, for me, it's sometimes embarrassing, because if it's too much, of one way, then it gets a little jarring, right? And so, I think that for me, what's happening in Korea, I feel like this has to happen in order for it to get better, right? So for things like the Me Too movement that was happening there, what people have to kind of feel like they need to Photoshop their photos for the resumes, the job applications, things like that. I'm hoping that changes, where people can just be who they are, which is a lot of what we translate, which is like in America, a lot of the definitions of beauty have been about, okay, if you have a blemish, let me cover it up with foundation, right? Let me cover it up with makeup. And we always say skin first. Let's address it down to the, like, you are beautiful, like, let's just handle it. Beauty's a journey, not a destination. And so, one of my last comment here on this topic is, there was a really cool moment that we had. We've been working in this industry for over 6 years, actually. And one of our goals was to work with the #1 K-beauty, conglomerate, which is Amore Pacific, right? And that's always been the goal. And we are working with them today, and we're very proud of that. One of the brands that we work with is Etude House. Everyone's probably heard of Etude House, probably been in their dollhouse, like flagships. And it's really awesome. And, a couple of years ago, they appointed a new CEO. It was a female, like the first time that's ever been done in Amore Pacific. And she came to New York, and we hosted her, and we had a meeting. And I think one of the main topics was how proud we were, because she was also young, right? It wasn't the quintessential, it had to be an older man who, had been there for a very long time. She was young, she was female, and we were so proud, because I thought that what we saw was kind of a new beginning in terms of changing the narrative in Korea, because we feel like there's so much greatness that's underneath the surface. They just have to realize that we need brave people to kind of push through, and some of that will be misinterpreted, some of that will be highlighted, maybe, and some of it will be, maybe even negative. But I think that in the end, I'm hopeful.
I think jumping off of what David was saying, just in general about how women are portrayed in K-dramas and in K-pop, like traditionally, the K-drama formula is this poor girl who has nothing.
The Cinderella,
yeah, the Cinderella story, right? The Candy story, where she's waiting for some Prince Charming to come and rescue her. I feel like there's been a good and important shift in where K-dramas are portraying a lot more, powerful, independent, opinionated women, and it's not just okay to be that, but this is a good thing, right? And I hope that that's a better example to not just Koreans, but the people who are consuming this content. And also even with K-pop, like there's the very traditional girl groups where it's just being cute. It's all about being cute. But I mean, there's a lot more powerful, girl power type groups like Blackpink and Mamamoo who aren't afraid to show that, hey, I'm a strong and confident woman. And I think that's a very important message for the audience, not just in Korea, but all over the world.
Yeah.
Right, those are all important important points, and it's good that we're having this open discussion to how do we address the problem. So my next question is, so you are at the core of Hallyu at the moment, right? So K-pop, K-drama, and K-beauty. So what do you think will be the next big thing that we should bet our money on? What can come next? What will be the next thing that you will see Korean culture spreading?
Actually, it's not really an industry that I'm interested in spreading, but I think the two things I learned in Korea when I was there for 5 years, one was skincare. The second thing that I had learned was about the concept of chang. And I don't know if you're not Korean or if you guys know what chang is. It's not a word that's easily translated into the English language, but it's a deep emotional connection that you could have with someone or something, and it's something that's very part of Korean culture. It's very infused into their lifestyle and way of life. But that is actually something that's disappearing now, I think, even in Korean culture, and I feel like something that made a huge impact for me when I was living in Korea. And so I think that our society as a whole, globally, we need this idea of chang more than ever, this sense of community, this ability to have deep connections with people by being vulnerable, by being just spending time with people instead of just texting people. I think we're so, through this digital age, there's so many negative effects from that too, that I would love to share this concept of chang. And that's through a book that I'm writing right now and through several discussions I've been having with different people, but I really do think chang is something that the whole world could look up to, and that is a big part of Korean society. And I also want to encourage the younger generation in Korea to realize how important that is too, because I do think it's an element in Korean society that is disappearing a little bit, based on the many conversations I've had with people in Korea. So even though that's not an industry where you can really monetize, chang, I think, is something that I would love to bring to light globally.
Yeah, I'll quickly add mine. I think this is nothing new, but we're just seeing so many interesting things happen in New York, which is food. We all know about the Korean barbecue and all those great restaurants, but we're lucky to be some friends with some people in the restaurant industry in New York, and some of them have just gotten Michelin stars, and some of them have really cool ideas that are happening, and people are waiting for them to open up new restaurants, and there's a lot of anticipation there. I think there's a lot of interest there. I remember I went to undergrad in New York, and every time I come down to the city, we definitely have to make one visit to K-Town, and so we went down there, and it was mostly Korean people, I would say. But now if you go there now, it's mostly not Korean people, and it's amazing, actually, that people are really embracing the food, and people really have loved the food. I'm sure everyone in this room have had Korean barbecue or some naengmyeon or jjajangmyeon or something, right? That's Korean inspired. But I think that it's coming into its own, where it's being recognized on a global level, right? Which like gaining Michelin stars. So these credentials are really nice to see, and I think that it's gonna probably go even higher.
Right. And then fun fact, KI actually hosted Korean American Day honoring Korean American leaders in food back in 2016.
Awesome.
Okay, continue.
Nice. The whole concept of chang is just, it's such a Korean thing that, it's really hard to translate. I think that's really wonderful. This is maybe two parts. One is an expansion of Korean storylines and formats coming to the US. There's already been several successful shows like The Good Doctor and what was the one with the grandpas? I don't know. So Masked Singer, the one right now, it's getting hyped like crazy. I don't think they did as good a job as the Korean one. But there's just so many creative formats in Korean variety that we just don't really have in the US. We have Bachelor, we have Survivor, but not these really maybe more wholesome, but really fun and clever formats that we could bring here. But aside from that, I think just language, embracing of Korean language, based on the interest in all these other topics that we're talking about, I think would be amazing and fantastic. Just, record numbers of people taking Korean in universities and apps like Duolingo, I think is a really good sign. But I would love to see, of course I'm taking Korean at school, why wouldn't I be? Versus right now, where we are in California, it's Spanish. It's just Spanish, right? But it would be fantastic to see, Korean gain traction there.
Michael, anything to add?
I don't know if this answers your question, but I'm really excited about the idea of kind of independent storytelling that's possible now with digital distribution the way it is. It's very empowering, I think, for anybody who are traditionally, let's say, marginalized, didn't get past the gatekeeper, whether it was Comcast or whomever. My past experience launching an Asian TV channel, the challenges are definitely have come down. And what I want to do moving forward is really to kind of encourage young people to be creative, to be able to go out there and not have to just graduate and wait tables 5 years before they get a break in Hollywood. The whole paradigm has just collapsed, and there's this wonderful, the fragmentation of media is actually a very encouraging thing, I think, from my standpoint. And for me, where I sit, because we have our own kind of distribution channels, I want to encourage. So we're working with colleges now, and I think what's interesting about the K-pop phenomena and just K whatever is that you can have a very distinct, specific cultural product that can actually go viral because of these mechanisms. Not everything, but you put enough ideas and that have a kind of a heart and soul in a very specific place. And you put that out there, and then some really amazing things could happen that will surprise the larger culture. And that's what I want to encourage. So instead of, I have conversations with Chinese companies all the time that have invested so much money into this market, and they continue to do so, but I think they're just totally going about it. And I tell them that. I say, look, instead of doing one film for $100 million, do 1,000 a month and just incubate all of these great stories everywhere. And the more actually local and specific there is, I think the chances of that blowing up and really reaching other people, because there's obviously common themes but what makes it special is the detail, is the fact that that's why I think that is such an interesting idea, because how can you tell a story that represents that? And then you could start talking about, that's a Korean concept. And those are the kind of stories that I want to tell. Like, let's say Korean kids or Korean filmmakers, or it could be filmmakers here. They're telling their immigrant story, let's say, that's very unique to them. Those are the type of stories that are possible now, and you could actually do well enough so that you could make your next project and keep building from there. It's not something you do and go, okay, nobody's going to see it. Like, it is possible now. That's really, there's never been a better time to be a creative person that wants to get their voice heard and have it actually go somewhere. And so that part I think is exciting. That's really what keeps me going. Like, that I think is exciting.
Great. That's a nice segue to my last question for today. So today we're celebrating Korean American Day, right? So what advice do you have for maybe younger Korean American generation, or other just Korean Americans in general, briefly?
Authenticity. Today, I think today's climate, the most important thing that people should strive for in their communications, and that applies more than anything to politics. Think about it. The people that support Trump, they think he's incredibly authentic within, and you got to pay attention to that, right? Because it's like, why is he so popular? He's crazy. And then the people that oppose him, they think he's incredibly inauthentic, right? So that should tell you something, and that really applies a millionfold in terms of what resonates with young people, and when you want to reach people. I think and I tell everybody that I'm working with right now, producers, editors. If it doesn't feel real to you on some level, then it's worthless, And so I think authenticity, strive for authenticity in your daily communication, as well as if you want to be creative. So yeah, I would say authenticity.
That's a hard one to follow up on. This is not just to Korean Americans, but I have this kind of growing passion for how can we get, especially young, not just Korean American, but young women in general, like children, like my daughter's age. My daughter's 8. Like, how do we get them interested in STEM? How do we get them interested in things like programming? Because all they care about is Disney princesses. Like, all they care about is dolls. And like, for me, like, it's a concern. Like, my background is computer programming, and so it's like I want them to expand their minds. Like, they don't only have to be a princess. Like, they could be a very smart princess that is able to pull a lot of things off. And I think a branch off of that is just
Teach them woodworking, remember?
woodworking,
Woodworking.
too. I'm into woodworking. Entrepreneurship for Korean Americans and just young people in general. Like, I never expected to be an entrepreneur. Like, that was never a dream of mine. But as I had the opportunity, and being a Korean American actually is what set me up for it, right? Because I have the Korean culture. In this American context, I was able to create this thing. And as the opportunities came, then I had to learn. I had to learn very, very quickly. But I think a lot of people look at that and it's like, oh, that's not something I could do. But I mean, I think Charlotte and David is also a really good testament to like, hey, you have this passion and you could really make it into something. And so I would encourage our youths and less youth to kind of go for it. Like, don't be afraid. And that's a message to myself as well.
I think what Susan did, it's just incredible. Because she started out, it was a fan site. It was her personal fan site. And it was just all this passion poured into it every day. Right. And I think as entrepreneurs, you get so wrapped up in the idea of trying to make money and to pay the bills. And you just, after a while, just like, come up with something interesting that you would watch as a fan. And sometimes you have to kind of go back to it. So, you know, I really admire her for that. And then, you know, just the perseverance, you know. And you could lead by example with your daughters and stuff. So I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Advice for Korean Americans, I would say try not to be so competitive with one another. I think it's very common to see people kind of fighting so much that you both go to drive yourselves to the ground. And I think it's just a competitive nature of Korean people, but help each other as much as you can. I think this year has been a phenomenal year for Korean Americans. I mean, my friend Jenny Han wrote this book, and it's like been at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for 25 weeks in a row. She has this amazing Netflix series, and you know, I just applaud her. I try to promote more of her work. Sandra Oh, you know, she just got another Golden Globe. There's exciting things happening, and I think the Korean community needs to support one another. So don't be so competitive.
That's a great positive note to end on. So obviously we can talk for hours, but we don't want to take too much of your time. So we did record podcast interview with each one of honorees. So we'll post them on KEI's website for you to listen to. Please join me in thanking this year's honorees. Thank you so much for your insight. Mark, so we're going to move on to the last part of the program, which is the plaque presentation.
Okay, my name is Mark Tokola. I'm the Vice President of KEI. And it's my honor to be able to announce the names of our honorees for this year. So I call your names, would you please come up? So first, Charlotte and David Cho. Oh, Congressman, okay, please, Congressman. And we're honored to have Congressman Kim join us to present. Wonderful, thank you, Congressman. Okay, please.
Congratulations, and thank you for coming. Really, all the best to you. Yeah, so please, you hold it. I got to present.
Okay, thank you. And next, Michael Hong.
Yes, the congressional declaration is on here, you see, so all the better we have Congressman too. That's right. Yeah.
And Susan Kang.
Yeah, really terrific remarks. I'm going to be a fan of your site now too. So.
So, yeah, thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Congressman. Yeah, we'll do that. But all that remains for me to do is to thank you all for coming, and to remind you, please, on your way out, to pick up your free pass to the museums and come back and see this great museum at some future date. So have a safe drive home and a good weekend. Thank you all for coming.